Today, a bus trip from Manali to Leh is quite an adventure, right? Now imagine what an adventure it must have been on a bus trip from London to Calcutta in 1957. We bring you the story of a Royal Air Force officer whose brainchild was a bus service that would connect India to the West. After serving in India with the Royal Air Force, Oswald Joseph Garrow Fisher, affectionately called Paddy, came up with an idea of a commercial bus service from London to Calcutta. One bus, 20 passengers and a 32,000 kilometer round trip. This was not a luxury bus, mind you. It was only meant for true travelers. At the onset of the journey, it was made crystal clear that if you expected mollycoddling, you had no business being on this bus. It was a rugged and rewarding journey that would take passengers across mountains, deserts and into the remotest parts of countries. Join us as we sit down with Claire Garnett. Do you know if any romances blossomed on the bus ever?
A lot. I don't know whether they carried on beyond the bus.
Her stories tell about a world before the internet where the word instant hardly figured in one's vocabulary. Processes took time, travel took time, and yet her generation managed to pack in more adventure in a lifetime than most of us can today. Watch the conversation I had with Claire till the very end. There was this bus that used to run from London to Bombay, okay? The brainchild of a gentleman called Oswald Joseph Garrow Fisher. That was his right name, right?
Yeah.
Paddy Garrow Fisher. And he, in fact, was a traveling automobile parts salesman. That's what he was. And he served in the RAF in India and in the Middle East. And after the war, his job was to supply automobile parts all across Europe and Asia. So he used to drive to India quite often doing this. Then he hit upon the idea that I can also take passengers. So in 1957 or 1958, he started this bus called the India Man, right? And the India Man ran all the way till the time Iran closed down. It used to be a regular bus service that would take people from London and take them all the way to Calcutta.
Yes.
Of course, the route would go through Syria, Damascus, Iran, Turkey, Iran, and then through Pakistan into Bombay, or then continue from Bombay to Calcutta and back. And also, it was advertised as a trip that is not where you wouldn't be mollycoddled. You wouldn't be mollycoddled. You would expect to face hardship and soldier on and not expect any creature comforts. It was an adventure in the true sense of the word. So, where does Claire come in? I'll tell you, I'll start off and then I'll hand it over to her. So, Claire comes in through a very coincidental moment when she was 13 years old in a place called Sannan, a place called Sannan, okay? And one day when she was with her grandparents, she was visiting there from Tehran with her grandparents, visiting her grandparents who lived in Sannan, and she was visiting them from Tehran. Paddy knocked on their door. Okay, so now please tell me, do you remember that fateful night in 1957 or 58?
I think it must have been 58.
Okay.
Because the place my grandparents were, they didn't speak English, anyone under there. So Paddy had broken down and someone had brought him, because my grandfather and my grandmother both spoke English. Anyway, Paddy explained what had happened, and grandfather said to him, "Oh, not a problem," because the bigger city was 20 miles away. He said, "I'll organize that." It was something to do with Leyland, and the Leyland agency was in Kermanshah. And because Paddy had made the bus into a sort of caravan, they lived on it. And his wife was an Indian lady who was very capable.
Mary.
Moti.
Okay.
He wouldn't hear about it. So they came and had dinner with grandfather and Nana Luba. And then he said, "I insist you sleep here," because they have bedrooms for the restaurant. And so the next day, this part arrived, and Granddad had organized for a mechanic to fit it in for him. So Paddy didn't have anything to do. And that was my grandfather. He was a most generous man. Ended up, he said, look, I must pay you. And my grandfather said, I don't accept your money. What can I do? So he then said, if you take my daughter, my auntie was there, to London, take her back to Tehran because her holiday is finished. I'd be very grateful. He said, that's no problem. He had a spare seat anyway. So auntie went there. Actually, we were then back home in Tehran, and they arrived at our front doorstep, and my mother said, she knew what was happening. She said, I'm not going to let you go. You have to have dinner with us because our people are very hospitable, as you probably know. And so they came in, they were having dinner. My father came back from work, and the men got involved talking about what Paddy's plans were. And he said to my father, he must have asked him if he'd like to drive for him because of what he was setting up. And
What was Paddy setting up?
this was his exploratory trip to plan his business, taking people from London to Bombay on overland. And Dad thought this was a wonderful idea because he wanted to be away from my mum. And ended up, Paddy took lots of pictures of us children and Dad and Mum. And he said, I will send you an invitation because you have to have an invitation from a government body in Iran to get a passport. But this was only for Dad. So 8 or 9 months later, we hadn't heard from Paddy, and we thought, they thought we were kids. We didn't get much attention to the whole thing. And my dad thought, it was a good while it lasted. But coming a 9th or 10th month, I can't remember, a package arrived with everything, lots of photographs, all the official paperwork, an invitation for my father to go and work for him. And then he got a passport. And when Paddy was coming from the first trip, he was coming to Persia or Iran then.
From London?
Yes, with passengers, about 30 passengers. So he ended up stopping with us, picking up my dad, driving to Bombay, and then from there they picked up passengers and came via Iran and off to London. And this was, now it was 6 months in, and my mother thought, well, when is he going to take us with? So it ended up, my mother gave my father an ultimatum. He said, you either take us with, or you come back to home and stop, rejoin your previous life. Well, of course, my dad had talked to Paddy, and Paddy had obviously got pictures about him leaving. So he organized for us. Again, another package came where we could get a passport for all 4 of us. They came through to Iran. My mother got all the work done. By the time they returned, it was another 3 months because that's how.
So from Iran to Bombay and then back to Iran,
Yes.
3 months. Yeah.
He picked us up and put us on the bus, and off we went. He changed the route slightly, Paddy, for us, because living in Tehran, we never seen the sea because it's landlocked, Tehran. So they changed their route going back to north to Caspian Sea. And us children were just, couldn't wake up in the morning to see the sea. It was very exciting. And from there, we went to Turkey. And again, bus broke down on the way. It didn't break down, actually. It lost the road. It went into a slight ditch. And it was like this. So local Turkish people came. All of us got off the bus. They pulled it. It was very much an adventure for everybody. But I was the only one. I would not sleep on the outside. They had tents, army tent, and My dad used to say, wait till everybody's gone to sleep, nip in, and I could sleep in the bus. I loved sleeping in the bus.
So, what was life like on the bus? Could you, if you remember, could
Yeah.
you tell me about how it was in the bus? What was it like? Did people have certain roles, or what was it up front? Of course, your dad was driving.
Yes.
Was Paddy there too?
No, Paddy was driving another coach.
Okay.
It ended up he had a fleet of 3 coaches, 3 drivers. It was a big business. By the time he picked us up, the business had grown. On the bus, it was amazing. There was every you can. He had a doctor, then nurses, and there was a lord, somebody who ended up working for Paddy because he loved the journey so much. He asked for a job, and he was driving, and it was it's a, well, like a camping holiday every day. There were people who were just very nice and very excited about the whole thing because you wake up every day and you've got different scenery. And it was, for example, Turkey was just an eye opener for us because of the smells of almonds and oranges and smells of the sea. These are the smells we've never experienced as children. So, but there was one woman, this is, I think it will be of interest to you. Every morning she was late to get on the bus, and they had to be very strict with times because if they lost half an hour every day, they'd be because in some places they couldn't camp, so you had hotels booked and crossings to manage and all the things that are involved in coach trips. So this woman, the dad used to wait for her, and then it became a bit silly. So he then announced on the um, coach that if anyone was late, they would go without them. And it was up to them to catch up with the bus.
All right.
And this woman was late, and we started our journey. And obviously, Dad was concerned, but he had all the other people to consider. So it ended up she took a taxi to catch up with the coach. It cost her in equivalent about £100 in those days, and she was never late again. So, and the most interesting thing was, what was the? I'm trying to think what if they wanted to stop to go to the loo, bush stop it was called. So they all had a card. If they wanted to stop for the loo, they used to hand it to Dad, and it do a bush stop. The men used to go on the back of the coach, behind the coach in the back, and the women used to go on the left-hand side or right-hand side for the modesty.
Privacy, yeah.
And I could not do it. I used to wait till we got to a place where there was a proper. And that was funny. And there was a wonderful cartoon. I think in his day he was quite famous, but I don't remember his name because we didn't speak any English. And he did was wonderful cartoons of dads and all the prominent people on the coach. And Dad had it, but unfortunately, Dad went to Australia. No, Dad went to New Zealand with his new wife, so we don't have any of his memorabilia.
All right. And tell me, for how many years did your dad drive this bus from London to Bombay or Calcutta?
Until Paddy died.
Till 1975.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
And did he ever mention what it was like to drive into India or driving in India? How it was? Did he ever tell you what it was like to be in India?
He loved people there because he was able to speak a little bit of Urdu, a little bit of Pashtun, and my dad just picked up languages like anything. And he didn't. We never had that much time with him because he and my mother were in a constant conflict, so we were never able to sit as a family around the table and reminisce and there was just a lot of animosity between the of them. So we've just actually didn't have that much time with them, unfortunately.
Okay. And what was the inside of the bus like? Was it comfortable, or was it really
Well,
Spartan?
it was Spartan because they were not specially made for long distance travel. They were an obsolete London buses. And if you think about it, have you seen some of the pictures,
I have.
the drawings? Um, I would like. I don't know if you've got some of them, but someone having read the book emailed me some more pictures that I didn't know existed.
So you've got the pictures.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take them from you later on.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting. And so basically, you got onto the bus, then you came to London, and that's
We
where you
went-
started your life.
Yeah. Well, we stopped in Austria because I think for whatever reason, because of his business, Paddy hadn't had a chance to find us accommodation, anything at all. So he left us in Austria because they used to use this hotel for the passengers, and made a deal with them and left us there for 3 months. So as far as us kids were concerned, we loved it because it was on the lake, it was summer, and we used to sit around the lake, and people used to come and try to talk to us, but we didn't understand. So gradually we learned a few words of German. So it was really nice for us kids. I'm the oldest. My sister was born in 46.
Bella.
Yeah, Bella. And Joseph was younger. And Joseph found himself a little job in the boathouse. He used to marshal the boats.
Yes, I remember that from your book. And then because of that, the owner let you take the boat out on your own and would go for a little wander down the lake.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was sort of his payment
Yeah.
on that. So that was our very happy time for us kids.
Yeah. So you mentioned on the bus, was Paddy's wife also with him?
Oh, yes,
Paddy would be driving,
yes,
and the wife would be next to him.
yes.
And she would, I believe she would read out the maps for him and stuff like that.
She was really very capable lady, and she just looked after him like a baby. But then when I think when we were coming, I'm not sure. I can't remember whether she was there or not. But thereafter, when the business got to a particular side, she stopped traveling, and she was at home. They had a quite big house, and it was all rented out. So he had income from this house as well. But unfortunately, I mean, I have never told this anyone, but I'm very comfortable to tell you. He rented us one of his rooms. So my mum and my brother slept in what was our rented room. And the two of us girls, slept in with his two daughters in another room. So they used that house absolutely fully. And my mother used to have to share the kitchen with Moti. And that didn't suit me at all. The girls were not very nice to us because we were an intruder. And so I got out as quickly as I could.
So basically, you all moved to London because that's what your mum wanted.
Yes.
Okay.
And we were not happy about that because we were sort of in our own society in Iran. We were the top dogs. Where we came to England, we were down there, and it made us feel bad because nobody would talk to us. We were foreigners. There wasn't many people in Kingston where we were who were foreign because it was not, the Moti, the only Indian lady in the whole area. So she was a novelty, if you like. And we were not happy. But you read the book, having started dressmaking, my life took over because I met so many different people, and starting the dancing, which was something that I had never ever intended to, hadn't entered my orbit.
And I also, with the interesting narration in the book where someone gave you an idea to get your belly insured.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and no one would do it, but then then a company did it, right?
Good.
And
Yes.
and it made headlines all over the world, right?
That was a hot. It's only afterwards. I was so innocent. I was just 9, 20. I was engaged by a company who had owned 2 restaurants. One was the fish restaurant, and one was
Tamarisk.
Hmm?
Tamarisk.
yeah. God, you've got a memory. They
And then they called it Tamarisk.
yeah, but it's quite close. They had hired a PR company that the owner was an ex Daily Mirror. I don't know what his job was, but he was a top man at Daily Mirror. But he had polio in his youth, and he was walking on crutches. And he was a lovely man. He phoned me up and he said, Claire, or Sonia then, because that's my second name. He said, have you ever thought about what will happen if you have to have an operation and scar your tummy? And I said, no. He said, well, I think you should insure yourself, your tummy. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. I've heard people insuring their fingers, their all other assets. So I had a wonderful insurance broker. By this time, I'd opened my first shop. So I rang him up and I said, Gordon, I'm going to ask you an unusual request. I want to insure my tummy. And he just laughed.
Yeah. So you were telling me about incidents along the way when you were on the India Man.
Yes.
So could you tell me a few incidents?
Well, the one that really sticks into my mind was we were going through a village in Turkey because we traveled all the way up north of Turkey. And some guys came out and started shooting at the back of the bus, but fortunately, we used to all the spare luggage was always stored at the back of the bus, so nobody was injured. But
So the bullets hit the luggage,
yes,
and that's what saved you all.
Yes, it did. I mean, if there wasn't luggage there, it would have got some people who were sitting at the back of the bus. Minimum people were about 30 in the bus, so it gave them plenty of room to expand themselves.
So basically, stuff like this, like being shot at,
Yes,
or breakdowns,
breakdown.
or was all supposed to be part and parcel of
Oh,
this trip.
absolutely.
You had to expect it. You couldn't say that this is not what I signed up for, because it was made clear to you
Yes.
that this is what you're signing up for.
Absolutely. That's also, we picked up on an advertisement that tells you that. They said this is not a luxury, this is rough and ready, and don't exact words that in the advertisement they put, so it's not for faint-hearted. And some places we stayed in hotels, and some places they camped because money was limited. Some people were not very rich doing this trip, but it really was an adventure. And some of them made that trip 2, 3, 4, 5 times.
Really?
Because they loved everything about the whole experience. And Dad and Paddy made it fun for them too.
In what way did they make it fun?
Well, it was like a little family going on an outing, really. Except if people started being strange, they were just ignored. But generally, they used to, in the evening, they used to camp around the fire, and there was someone who played a guitar, and they sang, and it was like being on a camping holiday with your family because you got to know each other. I think one of the famous passengers we had was the daughter of Bishop of Birmingham, Bishop something Montefiore, is very famous, well-known bishop. And she must have done it 3 or 4 times, I can't remember. But it was just like you said, it wasn't hold your hand and take you. Everybody did their own luggage, they did everything for themselves, and they put up their own tent, camping bed. All the stuff camping was an army surplus, so they had to assemble their bed every night.
Do you know if any romances blossomed on the bus ever?
Lots.
Really?
Oh, lots, yes. I don't know whether they carried on beyond
Okay.
bus because we were too young to actually form a relationship with people, particularly as we didn't speak language. But I'm sure if we were of a similar age, there would have been a lot of friendships on the bus.
All right.
It was an amazing thing they did. And then after that, he also,
He,
Paddy, also started an adventure thing to take Range Rovers to Africa.
you mean Land Rovers? That time there were no Range Rovers.
I mean,
Land Rovers.
yes. And we were also, as children, were also interviewed by one of the top motoring
Magazines.
correspondents when the motor show was on, because we were on that bus and they wanted to know about it like you.
Yeah.
So we filmed it, and we're getting in and out of the Land Rover.
Really?
So it was a wonderful adventure for us. I
Yeah.
think.
To think that it is from so many years ago. You know what I
know.
mean?
And,
Would you by any chance happen to know any other passengers on the bus? Do you?
not to keep in touch
No,
with.
no.
His daughter was on the bus, Paddy's daughter.
Yeah, but
was.
she's dead now.
Well, he had
Her name
children.
was Maureen, right?
Maureen, but there was also a daughter called Frances.
All
I
right.
don't know what happened to Frances, but she had an affairs all the way from different men. I mean, we were like, oh,
Oop, really?
yeah. But she was 18 and very pretty, so
Right.
that was another adventure. But they used to go to Colombo as well, and pick up a lot of Australian people who came. There used to be a sort of package from Australia to Colombo to get on this bus.
Yeah.
So there was
Albert, there was something called the Albert.
Albert, that's my dad.
Right. Okay.
That you saw his picture.
Okay. Okay.
Very handsome man.
Albert.
My dad was so good looking.
Yeah.
And he was.
Yeah.
he
It
was,
shows on you.
He was 20 when I was born, so he was so young, and I think not seeing the world. It must have been fantastic.
For him, it was an adventure. I mean,
Sorry?
it
That
must have
was
been
an
it was an adventure of a lifetime.
Yeah.
It has been my lifelong dream since the time I was 11 years old to do the Great Overland.
Yes.
You know, it's called the Great Overland. Drive the overland from Bombay to London.
Yeah.
I used to have this thing in my mind, B&B, Bombay to Buckingham Palace.
Oh,
You know, that was my thing that I want to
that's
do.
lovely.
And it was like it was almost an unachievable
Yes.
dream. But then you say now you keep on thinking of something, and the universe transpires to make it happen.
Yeah.
So I had my opportunity to do it in 2015.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, that's why I'm really, I wouldn't say envious, but really, I really admire your dad that he had the opportunity to do it so often and in a bus. You know what I mean? No
Childhood ambition.
no automatic gear shift, no cruise control.
No.
Probably every time he had to get into first, he had to double declutch
Yes,
to get into first gear.
absolutely.
Oh, old diesel engine, a cantankerous diesel engine,
Yes.
which had to be nursed and pampered. You just couldn't say fill it, forget it, and just drive on like the cars today. They had to be looked after. It has to be regularly greased. The
Yes,
suspension, I'm sure suspensions broke often because of the
Yes.
roads and all that.
Oh, the roads in Turkey. Well, I don't know about once he left Iran. That was bad in Iran, but in Turkey was quite primitive in those days. I mean,
I'm sure India too.
it was, and he used to tell us stories about the cows that used in
Cows.
yeah, and he said they used to be behind when then they would not move them, and
This is in India.
yes, and
The problem still exists. Let me
Does
tell
it?
you. Yeah.
and there were a lot of problems at Khyber Pass. There were still problems in
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan. So if that was closed, they had to go through
The Bolan Pass.
what?
The Bolan Pass. BOLN.
I-
From Quetta.
That's right. So they had to make up their itinerary, but if something like that happened, they couldn't help it, so they used to make up when they can. But the generally feeling was, we are on a camping holiday and life is very good, and there were a lot of funny things happening. But I remember every night they used to get round the fire, and people sing, play guitar.
I remember reading also once that they had to wait out for 2 weeks between Pakistan and Iran because there was an influenza epidemic, and they were quarantined for 2 weeks before the border had closed, and they had
This
to.
was for Paddy's, for the Garra Fisher trip. This
Yes,
one,
yes,
yeah, I didn't know about that.
yeah, that's it. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? All these kind of things happen, and you have to have a very easygoing mindset. You can't say, oh, I've got to be in Bombay on this
Yeah.
day. There's a lovely photograph. I don't have it with me now, but there's a lovely photograph of passengers boarding the bus at the gateway of India in Bombay, just
Yeah.
outside the Taj Mahal Hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives me goosebumps to see the
Lovely.
bus there.
Yeah.
So it would start over there at the
Yes.
gateway of India, and it would
So
end
nice.
at King's Cross in
Yes.
London. I mean, you drive from gateway of India
Absolutely.
to King's Cross. It's something that you do as a vacation, not as a, you know what I mean,
Yes, as a job.
as a job. Yeah.
No, well, I think he was very happy. He never wanted to leave that job.
Your dad.
Yes, he was great friends with Paddy, and basically, if mum and he went on each other's road, well, Dad was a very calm and patient guy. Mum was a bit fiery.
You have to be calm and patient if you're going to be doing this kind of trip, right?
But it was, I am so happy for him because he had such a rotten start in life. His mother died at 12, my dad's mum, and he was put on the lorry as an assistant lorry driver at 12 years of age. And he didn't have any opportunity to have a childhood. And his father was alcoholic. So this poor man was just thrown into the world. And he made something. He educated himself. He learned languages. He drove lorries. And my mother, he should have married someone more gentle. But my mother was really pushy. But I had to look after her when he left.
I know. I read that in your book.
And my sister didn't like it because we put that in the book.